But it was, now I will say this, it was a 20-year journey for me, right? It is probably my first clean birthday.
Oh, praise God.
Yeah, I've had addiction problems since high school. In and out of recovery centers, recovery rooms, jail, in and out. Yeah, I was just, had no guidance, nothing. Just thought I knew everything. Yeah, so, I did it all, basically, you know what I mean? Everything that I thought I knew would take away all the, what was going on in my head, right? So I didn't have a very good sense of what was going on in my head, so I had to shut it down. And the only way to shut it down was through alcohol and drugs. And, I lived a life of chaos for 20 years. Recovery was, I first went to Brentwood at 16 years old. And I was in and out of there, I think, a few times. In and out of the rooms of NA quite a few times. I went to a few other treatment centers all over Ontario. Nothing ever really worked. My whole life, my whole teenage years and 20s, I could never, ever figure it out. I never understood why I could never be happy. I could never have any peace or any sort of serenity, anything, right? As they talk about in recovery and in most recovery centers and rooms. I really wanted it, and I was rarely jealous because I didn't know how to get it. Plus, on top of it, I didn't want to work for it, right? As like most people do know, anything good in your life, you have to work for it, right? And I didn't work at all. I took every easy road I possibly could. I manipulated, lied, cheated, steal, you name it, I did it. If I could lie my way out of a wet paper bag, I would, and a drop dead second, right? I came to a point in my life where, nothing I did worked, right? I tried it all. I tried harm reduction, I tried, the marijuana maintenance program, I tried, you name it, I tried it all. It did not work. I kept going back and back and back and back, and with no end in sight. And then, I'd say about, so JB, as everybody knows, has been my sponsor in recovery for off and on for about 2 years now, and he had told me about this place, and he invited me here, and of course I was, no, I'm not going. That's craziness. I don't need recovery. I thought I had this all figured out, and I had a great job, money, but my life was just in shambles, right? Like I don't know. I couldn't put a smile on for the life of me, right? Just everything was just torture. From the outside perspective, everybody seemed like I had my, for the most part, I put on a good front, right? Like to the outside world, everything was good. But inside, I was just dying. I was a shell of a man. Then I think it was about June or July, I called him up, and he offered me a room in this in Launchpad Recovery, and I didn't quite understand what he was trying to tell me, because of course I was, had my ideas of what I wanted, and it was definitely not anything he was trying to offer. And so I wanted to manipulate what I could out of the situation, and so I decided to come down here and talk to him, and for no better words, I lost my head in his office, yelling, screaming, "Don't you know who I am? take your recovery center and shove it where the sun don't shine. And yeah, I was not ready to hear anything he had to say. And funny thing is, it took maybe 2 or 3 days, maybe 3 days. I was completely and utterly broken. I'd come to my end. There wasn't a single lie I could come up with to cover up what was going on in my life. I knew, like I said, I had been in recovery for almost 20 years. The seed was planted very young. So I knew, for the most part I knew. I just denied it for the longest time, right? So I come back 3 days later, the same seat that I just reamed him 72 hours earlier and told him, I'll do whatever you want. I don't care. I just come to that point where, everything I had done for 25 years wasn't working. Okay, fine, I'll listen to somebody for once, right? And I didn't want to listen to anybody, but for some reason I trusted him. And, for people that are in recovery, that's how it starts, right? You got to trust at least one person, right? And he was my one person, right? And I knew JB had, a good program in recovery, and I looked up to him for years. And I'm not much of the religious guy, but that's fine, right? I knew eventually. I just wanted to be clean. I didn't care about any of that. I just wanted to be clean. So I took his suggestions. I listened. I went to every meeting I possibly could. I think in the first 90 days, they say that 90 and 90 in the fellowship I go to, I think I went to 200 meetings in 90 days. I was insane in it. I was in boot camp, as I like to call it, for recovery. If there was a door open, I was in it. And if there was a chair open, I was sitting in it. And yeah, so I got to this point where, I got a little peace, I got a little serenity, things started to work, and like I said, when I walked in here, I had no care of God. I was angry. And that was the one thing. All I wanted to do was be honest and go to a lot of meetings. Those were the only two things that I could do. And I chose to do those two things, and I got a little understanding. I grew up in a very religious family. I got pastors in my house, in my family, and have for years. I grew up in a church. If the church door was open, I was in it. That was my childhood, right? So I knew, I just didn't care to hear it anymore. I had God shut down my throat for 30, 40 years. I was angry. And this time around, doing those two things got me to have a little bit of faith. And that little bit of faith, like I said, I'm not sitting here saying that I'm a Christian or anything like that, but for the most part, I have a little bit of faith. I pray today, I do my, you know what I mean? And I live a clean life, and I have, and I put in the hard work to do it, right? If the center itself, it's always open. doors always open. And it always was for me, right? So if I ever had a problem, and again, like I said, he's my sponsor. And in this 6 months that I've been clean, he's been fired and rehired. Just so you know, like me and JB have had our tiffs. Quite a few actually. I love the guy to death, but we have, we're both hard-headed. Both of us come from the same streets, did the same things. His story is almost identical to mine, and a lot of the ways, and that's kind of how we had that connection, right? And like today I have a life worth living, right? Like I may not have, how do they say that? You might not have everything I will want, but I have everything I need today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Amen.
I have a roof over my head. I don't have to worry about, who I gotta pay, what drug debt I gotta pay today, or what drug dealer I gotta, if the cops are gonna kick down my door tomorrow, or any of that, right? And, I can look myself in the mirror today, right? I get up every morning, and for the most part, yeah, I live a stress-free life, and it's beautiful today, right? Like I would never, ever tell anybody any different about recovery, right? Like it worked for me.
In my heart, meet me here, draw me near. This is my prayer.